What's up, everyone? Matt Vanacoro here with UVI, and I am really excited to show off JP Legacy. This is an amazing collection of one of the most iconic synth lines in the world. Now, the good folks at UVI have picked 4 of their favorite instruments from this Japanese analog synth lineage, and they've recreated them with raw sounds as well as new expertly designed patches. There are 4 instruments included in this collection, and those instruments are Saturn IV, Saturn VIII, Mercury 80, and Saturn VI. Let's dive into Saturn IV first. Let's just check out a little quick sample to get the character of this beast. All right, well, if you're into Duran Duran or Simple Minds or any great synth pop, you'll recognize that sound of this instrument immediately. Now, let's just check out. This is a multi here. So if you open up the sequence, you can see I'm using 5 different presets: Filter Mass, Lil Drive, Long Anissa, Click Bass, and Serenity. And they correspond to the different setups and sounds in each of these. So every single one of these layers has a different sound. If I go to part 2, you'll hear a different sound than was in part 4. Now, let's dive in and focus on one of those presets, and let's go to part 3 and just check out Long Anissa right there. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the multi-screen and make it so that it reacts to MIDI, and I'm going to listen to only that part so that we can play with it a little bit. All right, let's get that logic window out of the way. Now, if you take a look, you'll see that these sounds, many of them are made up of 2 different layers. I've got oscillator 1 on top, which is this faithful recreation of the original oscillator of this instrument, and oscillator 2 at the bottom, which is a whole other layer, and it's got all of the original presets from the instrument. So if I turn the power off for oscillator 2, we'll hear just the sound coming out of os 1. Nice little LFO varying sound there. And if I go to oscillator 2, a lot more percussive, and you can see all the different preset choices down there at the bottom. Now, I've also got all the original unison and ensemble sounds from those instruments. That's one of the reasons why you hear it so thick, so I can enable either of those to thicken up the sound a little bit and get a really nice, desirable tuning instability that widens it for me. So really, really cool stuff. So it's great. You can really mess around with these sounds and get to the raw sounds and make them as you want them. Really fun stuff. Let's take a look at Saturn VIII. So with Saturn VIII, you can see I've got 4 different parts loaded up there: Sign, Nature, Happy Meal, Sweep on Wheel, and S8 Bass Sequence 2. Let's take a listen. So as you can hear, a totally different synth sound from Saturn IV. You know, Prince, Jan Hammer, Stevie Wonder, Rush, they all loved this one, as do I. So I've got the Happy Meal patch open now. Again, this was set up from 4 different presets, but it's really amazing that you can hear how much sound was made out of just 2 of those. So I've got the arpeggiator patch happening right now. And you can hear how much sound is coming out of that one patch. So I'm only playing one part of that 4-part multi-timbral instrument right now. Let's look at the arpeggiation page just to see what's going on there. So I've got 2 arpeggiators that will correspond to the 2 oscillators. So I've got my 2 oscillator, my dual layered instrument set up on this one as well. And as you can see, only oscillator 1 right now is using an arpeggiator. And the arpeggiator is really easy to use and alter. You can see quickly I can just alter how many octaves it's going. Let it go a little higher or tighten it up and just stay in the same octave. You can easily adjust the speed. So really easy, and if you want, you can have both oscillators running off of the same arpeggiator with the link feature right there, or you can have them running separately. Now I know what some of you might be saying, Matt, there's a lot of motion going on there, and I see oscillator 2 is not turned on in terms of the arpeggiator, but I sure do hear some other motion besides that arpeggiator. Well, you do, and that's because I'm using the step modulator with that sound. So right there you can see that step modulator is kind of running through the filter depth for oscillator 2 as well as the volume. So if I go back and I turn off oscillator 1, we'll just listen to oscillator 2. See, there's a lot going on there with that step modulator. If I slow it down a little bit, you can see. And really easy to go in and adjust the steps using the mouse with a simple click. And you can make that sequence whatever you want it to be. But as you can hear, with both layers going, with both layers turned on, and one of them using an arpeggiator and the other one using the step modulator, you can get a lot of motion and a lot of wideness with just a few notes, which is just crazy. Really, really sick. Love the way that works. All right, let's jump into Mercury 80. So as you can see, I've got 6 different tracks set up for this one. So I've got a nice 6-part multi-timbral instrument. Let's take a listen. Yeah, that's a great one too. And you can hear I've got everything from that nice little plucky synth I'm using all the way to a nice big long sweeping sound. So a lot of sounds out of this originally rack-mounted beast. Let's go back to that pluck sound though, because I want to talk a little bit more. Now, you've got 2 layers here just as we have in all the rest of them. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but the sounds are so well organized. So if I can go right here on the program menu here, that's where I'm picking my different layers, my oscillator A, which is the top, and oscillator B, which is the bottom. You can cycle through your waveforms, and they're really organized quite well. So you've got the ability to go through and pick the different waveforms out. They're organized for you really easily, so you can easily swap in and out some of those original waveforms and move them around within this awesome sort of scripted engine that you've got here. Let's open up that effects page. So I've got that nice plucky sound. But if I want to enhance it with a little bit of drive, I could turn the drive on, ratchet that amount up, and get some real driven circuit sounds out of that. Of course, you've got your spark verb and your delay, so I can adjust the mix a little bit more there on both of those, maybe enhance the size of the room to really give it some ambience, make it nice and wide. But we've got the phaser and chorus, so you've got some great modulation effects that will really put you underwater if you want. And as you can hear, they're really, really wide and rich effects. So they really enhance the sound, and you can get a lot more out of those factory patches. Now, that's also going to bring up something else that I love. So one of the things that I love about UVI instruments is that they almost always include presets for designing your own sounds using the raw sounds of this instrument. So if I open up the sound browser and I go to the top Mercury 80 Basics, I can pick, for example, bass mono mode, and I've got everything I need to design my own bass sound in mono mode. So everything is already designed for me. I've got the envelope set. I've got the filter set. I've got effects turned off. I've got everything set up for me that all I have to do now is go ahead and rotate through the original sounds and maybe even enable the second oscillator. And of course, I can go in there and, bring one of the octave up using the editor. So I'll go ahead to oscillator 1 and bring it up an octave. So it's really, really great. It allows you to take a sound and design it the way that you want it to be designed without having to start, from square one every time. The settings that you need to design a good synth bass. So UVI has just provided those templates for you so that you can go ahead and play with the original samples and then design as you wish. You don't have to start from zero with these sounds. I really love that. All right, now let's check out the last instrument, number 4, one of my faves, Saturn 6. All right, so some great sounds in that one. Now, right away, you might be noticing, wow, wait, that window looks a lot bigger. Well, yeah, I'm opening it up in Falcon. So this instrument, JP Legacy, you can open up this collection in the free UVI workstation or in Falcon if you want to layer it with some other great synths and get a little bit more control over it. So here on the left side, you can see we've got the Sweep Frank, we've got the ARP Noise Snare, Hyper Fat, Fab 5 Furry 2. I challenge you to say that 3 times fast. Yanni Ensemble, and New 80s Wave. So lots of different sounds coming out of that one instrument. And while I've got that sweep one selected, we can talk a little bit about just the sweeping nature and the modulation wheel options that you've got. So if I play just a little simple sweep sound. Now, of course, that's got some growth built into it, but if I wanted to, I can use my mod wheel to add a lot more growth and motion to it. It's adjusting the filter clearly, and it sounds like a little tremolo to me. Well, let's check it out. I'll open up the edit page, and you can see how quick it is to assign things to the mod wheel. I've got this whole section where I can get vibrato, tremolo, or filter, and I can decide what kind of depth I want it to be able to go every time I use the mod wheel. So if I like the filter, but I don't like the tremolo, I click on the power for the tremolo, turn it off, and of course, don't forget to check both pages. So I want to make sure that I've got the tremolo turned off for oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. And now, as you can hear, it's adjusting just the filter. And I can edit both pages at the same time if I want to. I can go to oscillator 1 and 2 and go ahead and pop that tremolo modulator back on. I'll do eighth notes and let's hear it. So it's just so fast. You can quickly have your mod wheel assigned to anything. The other thing that I can do if I want to shape the sound a little bit more is I'll go back to the main page and just take a look at my envelope and filter options. So again, you can be adjusting oscillator 1, oscillator 2, or 1 and 2 together. So right now, if I listen, here's oscillator 1. Fluted. Well, that sounds appropriate. And then the big one, this saw 8. Okay, well, if I decide for these sounds that I would like to hear them a little bit more like an attack from them, I'll just go ahead and edit both of them and grab that attack and slow it down. And now it's a little more percussive. And of course, if I go and see the ones, okay, I've got a long release on both of them, I can adjust them independently and decide, okay, let's shorten the release a little bit for both of them just so that the shape doesn't quite linger as long. And then you've got the ability to go in there and tweak the sound as you like it. That's the cool thing about having these different layers, being able to edit them separately, being able to edit them together, and having the option of the unison or ensemble settings for each of them. And again, those unison ensemble settings are the sounds right off the instrument. Of course, you can, modulate it using the different effects that UVI has provided, and they are high quality effects. But you know what? Sometimes there is nothing like the original sound right from the instrument, and being able to have access to that is great. So that is JP Legacy. You can run it inside of UVI Workstation. You can open it up and run it inside of Falcon. It's an amazing collection of iconic synths, and it sounds really big and huge. I hope you guys dig it.